Well, Sean, we are now in a new era when it comes to marijuana use. It is legal both recreationally as well as medically. And this leaves many legal questions out lingering. Shall we answer a few?
Well, let's get some answers, shall we? Attorney Ryan Helmick, he joins us now from the Defenders. How are you there, Attorney Ryan Helmick? How you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, guys. Good morning, JJ. Good morning, Sean. Thank you for having me today.
It's great having you. All right, let's clear up some of the smoke around this because I think people have curiosity questions. Obviously, we've seen, we've all watched the TV shows. We all know the DUIs. Some of us have had them. I haven't. JJ?
Nope, never had one.
Just making sure. 0.08 for alcohol. But how do you measure marijuana? What are the current laws?
Right. So marijuana is measured only through the blood at this time. And the legal limit right now for marijuana, which I'll get into in a minute in regard to whether that's accurate or whether it needs to be looked into more. But right now, basically, if you're pulled over, they take your blood and you have 2 nanograms of active marijuana in your system, you're considered DUI. If you have 5 or more nanograms of marijuana metabolite, which is the inactive part of the marijuana, you're still considered DUI. And so really that's an issue in regard to the inactive and the active marijuana.
So, Ryan, this is really interesting. We're all familiar with the breathalyzer test and blowing and what number you blow. Now we have this whole new language, this nanograms. And then you mentioned active marijuana and inactive. What does that mean? Is that the amount of time since you have smoked?
Right. Okay. So here's where it becomes a bit complex, but I'm going to try to simplify it. Active marijuana, let's say that I smoked marijuana right now. It would be in my system, and this is according to some doctors and some scientists would probably have a little bit different views, but the average view is about 4 hours. Okay. The active marijuana is going to metabolize through your system. And the active marijuana, when I say active, it means the physiological effects. It's affecting the person mentally and physically in some way.
Yeah.
And so after about 4 hours, that's no longer there. But the other issue is the marijuana metabolite, which is the inactive marijuana, is going to remain in your system probably for 24 hours or so.
Wow.
And so that's the biggest issue, especially right now where marijuana is legal in many other states, recreationally and medically. The problem is that you could pull over somebody who smoked marijuana the night before and they're driving the next day. They're flying an airplane. They could run an Ironman race.
Yeah.
I mean, they can do all these things because it's not affecting them mentally or physically in any way. And that's a scientific medical fact. And so the problem is that's still on the books here in Nevada. Somebody with an inactive can still be prosecuted for a DUI, which makes absolutely no sense because it has no effect on them physiologically in any way.
Yeah,
well, it's interesting.
Obviously, that's whether or not it's been prescribed by a doctor. Curiosity, though, how do you think we should be changing the laws here so innocent people don't end up being wrongfully charged for DUI?
Right. So the way that it needs to be changed is through the legislature, and I think that there's some criminal defense lawyers. There's some. I think the prosecutors are looking at this too now in regard to really getting the inactive marijuana off the books.
Yeah.
Because it's not right for somebody to be charged when they are not, so to speak, high.
Yeah.
And people need this drug. It's medically prescribed for some people, and they shouldn't be prosecuted when it doesn't affect them mentally or physically. Now, if they're taking it and they're actively high, of course, right? We don't want actively high drivers on the road. Now, another issue is how does law enforcement address this, right? You have a breathalyzer for alcohol, right? So it's easy. We blow in the breathalyzer. We see it's above a 0.08. And of course, the individual is impaired. There's been studies and studies and studies. What I've found, though, is that there's the University of Pittsburgh right now is researching breathalyzers for marijuana. And in fact, there's a company called Hound Labs out of California that has made a breathalyzer for marijuana. It's not out in the market yet. It's supposed to come out later for law enforcement in 2020, later this year. But it needs to be tested hundreds of times in the law enforcement field before it's ever approved. But that's the only way I think we're going to be able to address it.
Well, inevitably, the technology will advance and law enforcement will adopt that most likely. Really quick before we go, you wrote a book, The Defense Begins.
Yes, I did. During the COVID time, it gave me a bit of a chance to do some things that I didn't have the time ordinarily to do. And so I wrote a book called The Defense Begins. It's the Nevada criminal justice system, a roadmap for the accused and their families. So it's a step-by-step process for anybody who's been charged with a crime, because it's very, very unfamiliar for them. And they need something to kind of walk them through it, to answer a lot of their questions, in addition to what the attorney gives them. And so it's a bit of a yellow brick road, so to speak, for my clients and their families.
Imagine. This is he wrote a book during this time. What do you do, JJ? Anything? Nothing? I didn't do anything.
Yeah, you should see how green my grass is.
There we go. That's about it. Yeah.
And my pool is clean.
Wow,
too,
we began and end the conversation with grass. Attorney, it's great having you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
All right, good to see you guys. I'll have to come check out your grass there.
Yes, there we go. It's very nice. Hey, go check out thedefenders.net if you want to learn more, or dial all threes if you want to reach out to them. The Defenders, a proud sponsor of the Morning Blend.